Hello YouTubers, this is Cessnaace back with another ads video. And this time, import CD ads. Bear with me, I've been fighting laryngitis the last couple of days. I don't know if it's because of the oral surgery I had or the antibiotics that I'm taking because of that, but in any event, this is as loud as my voice can get right now. Don't change the channel, but I have to touch on Abba briefly. This is their first album, Ring Ring, which was released in '73, which was a full year before they won the Eurovision Song Contest in Brighton, England with Waterloo. They had been asked by the officials within Sweden that were handling that to write a song and perform it for the Swedish heats of Eurovision. This was the '73 edition of Eurovision, along with Stig Andersson. Stig Andersson was their manager, but he was also a lyricist in his own right, and also it helped that he was the owner of Polar Music. Anyway, they collaborated and wrote a song called Ring Ring, which they performed for the judges in Swedish. You had to. For the Swedish heats, you had to perform in Swedish. The judges comprised of music critics, journalists, musicians, that sort of thing, ranked them third. So they didn't go on to to Eurovision, wherever it was being held that year. Well, they felt that Ring Ring should have won. So, Stig Andersson said, we're going to release an album, and we're going to release Ring Ring as a single, and see what happens. Well, back then they had two major charts in Sweden. One was dedicated to radio play, and one was for combined single and LP sales. They released the Swedish language version of the single Ring Ring. It hit #1 on the combined chart, while at the same time they had released the English language version of Ring Ring. It hit #2. At the same time, the Swedish version hit #1. The album hit #3 on the combined chart at the same time. I don't know that that has ever been duplicated by anybody else in Sweden, but they held the #1, #2, and #3 spots on the combined sales chart. The following year, they were asked back to write another song for the Swedish heats of Eurovision, and they wrote Waterloo, which won unanimously. And they went to Brighton, England, where they performed it in English, which ticked off a lot of the journalists in Sweden because they wanted them to have sung it in Swedish. Had they done that, I don't think they would have won. They might have, but I doubt it. Obviously, Björn, Benny, and Stig Andersson didn't think they stood much of a chance if they had performed it in Swedish, so they performed it in English and won big time the Eurovision Song Contest. They were not so well treated by the Swedish press. After that, you would think they would be lauded as heroes, but they weren't. They were attacked in the press for having sung in the Eurovision Song Contest in English. And as Anni-Frid Lyngstad later said in one of the documentaries I have, that when their subsequent records did very well, they really got nasty, the press. Because, as she put it, at that time, Sweden was a very socialist country, and here they were making tons of money. In fact, they were bringing in more money than any other entity in Sweden other than Volvo. But why I wanted to touch on this has to do with, well, first of all, She's My Kind of Girl. That had been done by Björn and Benny for a Swedish film called The Seduction of Inga, I believe it is. And about 2 years later, a Japanese record producer heard it, and he thought it had a good sound to it, a sound that would be pleasing to Japanese ears. So he released it as a single in Japan, and it shot to #1 pretty much overnight. And the four of them, four members of Abba, flew to Japan and were treated as superstars. So they were superstars in Japan even before Abba was Abba. Now, the bonus tracks on here are Merry Go Round, Santa Rosa rather, and the Swedish version of Ring Ring. The regular tracks are Ring Ring, Another Town, Another Train. Really like that song. Disillusion, which was co-written by Agnetha along with Björn Ulvaeus, and they really missed a good opportunity with Agnetha because that's the only song credit she had for Abba. But if you look at her Swedish albums, she wrote or co-wrote a lot of the songs that she recorded. And her debut Swedish album, the very first track, had been released as a single, and she wrote the music and the lyrics, and it shot to #1. And in fact, it sold so well that 5 singles wound up being released from that album, and it only had 12 tracks, the album. So anyway, People Need Love, I Saw It in the Mirror, Nina, Pretty Ballerina. Ever since I've heard that song, I cannot get it out of my head. Love Isn't Easy, but It Sure Is Hard Enough, which apparently came very close to being released as a single because a promotional film has surfaced, music vid, for that song. Abba pretty much pioneered the use of music videos for their songs, and whenever they were going to release one as a single, they did a promotional film for it. I'm going to stick a link down there. Love Isn't Easy, but It Sure Is Hard Enough. Me and Bobby and Bobby's brother. He Is Your Brother. She's My Kind of Girl. They get in Japan. I Am Just a Girl. And Rock and Roll Band. Now, before they became Abba, they were being released in the US under the name Björn and Benny. Now, this price guide is about 11 years old, so take that into consideration. Okay. They released 3 singles for Playboy Records. Now that was part of Playboy Enterprises, which is a big company, but Playboy Records didn't have much distribution. The singles they released, and they released 3, were Merry Go Round on the A side, People Need Love on the B side, Another Town, Another Train on the A side, I Am Just a Girl on the B side, Rock and Roll Band on the A side, and Another Town, Another Train on the B side. And then at the time this came out, which as I said was 11 years ago, they were going for $30 near mint, which is twice what any of the official Abba songs were going for when they signed with Atlantic. I also wanted to touch on what many critics consider their best album, Rival. This has 3 of their biggest hits on it: Dancing Queen, Knowing Me, Knowing You, and Money, Money, Money. It also has a song that many critics consider their best song that was never released as a single, When I Kissed the Teacher. Apparently it came very close to being released as a single because a promotional film music video exists for that song. And My Love, My Life is a strong song, and That's Me is a strong song. Why Did It Have to Be Me is a strong song. Dum Dum Diddle isn't, but be that as it may. The 2 bonus tracks on here are Fernando, which brings it up to 4 hit songs on this album, and Happy Hawaii. Happy Hawaii was an early version of Why Did It Have to Be Me? And so I never really considered the idea that Happy Hawaii might have been released in the US in any form because it had been rewritten. After Björn and Benny wrote Happy Hawaii, they recorded it. Then they decided they didn't like the lyrics, so they chucked out the lyrics and rewrote them. That became the song Why Did It Have to Be Me? And as Happy Hawaii's backing track had a very Hawaiian sound to it, that had to be chucked out and a new backing track recorded before the girls came in to do their lead vocals. Well, say the girls. Agnetha and Anni-Frid did the lead vocals on Happy Hawaii, but Björn did the lead vocal on Why Did It Have to Be Me? So that's kind of strange. Anyway, I wanted to touch on those. Oh, I forgot. Fittingly, very first group or artist you see in here, Abba. Happy Hawaii was released as the B-side to Knowing Me, Knowing You, which had 2 parallel releases, one in a conventional sleeve and the other one in a picture sleeve. So I think it's kind of interesting that a song that Björn and Benny weren't totally satisfied with and had rewritten wound up being released in the States as the B-side to a single because there weren't as many singles released here as there were everywhere else. Okay, these are the imports that I've added recently. Some are from Sweden, some are from Poland. First up, Anni-Frid Lyngstad, who of course would go on to marry Benny Andersson. She had already had herself a successful career in Sweden before she even met Benny, and released a ton of singles. Although Björn and Benny did write some songs that are on here, including Leica and Peter Pan, although I think she pronounces it Peter Pan or something like that. There is also a cover on here, well, there are a couple of covers on here to English language songs. When you know, it flew out of my head as soon as I went to talk about it. Track 8. I'm not going to try to say the Swedish name, but it's Love grows where my Rosemary goes, and nobody knows like me. I know that was really bad, but anyway. Published by EMI. Svenska. AB. Okay, I showed this one, but it was sealed. This is a 2 CD set, and when it was still sealed, it had a sticker on it right there that said made in England. However, I'm sure you can't see it. Certainly not on disc 1, which is yellow. I'd have better luck with disc 2, which is green. Made in Holland. Okay, now post Abba, Benny Andersson has started his own band, known inside Sweden as Benny Andersson's Orchestra, and outside of Sweden as BAO. This is BAO on tour. And yes, they have toured England and the United States. Many of the songs are in Swedish, but there are some that are in English, such as True Love and the standard Moon River. Published by Benny Andersson's own record label, which is Mono Music AB. His lead female singer, I'm not going to try and say the name, I'll go with this one first. Here she is singing all covers of Billy Joel songs. My favorite on this CD is her cover of Piano Man. This came out in 2010 by Universal Music AB, but somebody told me the AB signifies Incorporated. This one came out in 2002. While this one was published by Universal, this one was published by Benny Andersson's company, Mono Music AB. Visor. And yes, there is a CD there. Okay, now moving on to Poland. A friend of mine on Facebook, who used to have a YouTube account, but he closed it, so I'm not going to mention the name of it. I had put an open letter on Facebook asking people to recommend groups from countries outside of the U.S. and only one person so far has replied, made any recommendations. This particular person recommended this rock group which I believe English language translation of their name would be Red Guitar or Red Guitars, something like that. This was published by Capitol Music, which is part of EMI. Yeah, there's an EMI logo there. Printed in EU. EMI Music Poland. Okay. And after I posted a link on my Facebook page thanking him and also putting a link there for one of their songs, he recommended a Polish singer who, as it turns out, has had a very prolific career. She has recorded over 600 songs. She has released over 20 Polish CDs plus CDs in English, Russian, and several other languages. That translates roughly as Anthology 1. This was published by Universal Music Polska. Now, when I ordered this, I ordered her second anthology, but they shipped me her third. So I'm going to have to try and get the second anthology. But it's just as well because the very first track on here is one that I really like. And it translates into English as Remedy. And I'll stick a link down there. She wrote a song that is track 10 on here that is critical of communism. Poland was a communist country back in the days of this old Soviet Union, which is where some of her albums have been released in Russia, coincidentally. The song is called Polska Madonna, and it deals with all the broken promises of communism and the fact that, well, the lipstick that she uses says "Made in France" on it, you know, that sort of thing. But she is really good, so I can recommend her too if you're not the type of person who only listens to your native language. I'm not one of those people. I've never been one of those people as far as I know. I've always listened to foreign language music. Even when I was in high school, I was listening to stuff you wouldn't believe. Rock, country, jazz, rhythm and blues, disco, glam, big band music, swing, even some classical. I mean, my musical tastes are very eclectic. They're all over the place. So I'm going to make this an open letter to everybody in another country who watches my videos. If you have a recommendation that you think I might go for, then recommend away. Because so far this particular person has recommended two artists, well, a group and a soloist that I really like. Until next time, stay awesome.